Oh, it's delayed.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Edda just said, oh, it's delayed. Because we're looking at the feed, and the feed is always about 5 seconds behind the actual picture and our chatting. Yes, I'm not on my own this morning.
No.
I am
Here. Hello.
With Edda.
I'm here with Christoph.
I hope you can all hear us. That's always the main worry, whether this live streaming works. It's so good to be together. And the first thing to say is we're together today to chat with you. The second thing to say to you is you've probably noticed in our service that we've renamed Virtual Coffee.
Yes.
We've renamed it because we felt virtual actually gave an impression that it's unreal. And we talked about that, I think, at Virtual Coffee last week. So we've decided to rename it. Welcome to Church Coffee Online.
It probably will take another couple of weeks for that new name to stick, at least in my brain. So, shall we have a look who we've got here?
Absolutely. Let's do the hellos in a minute. Just wanted to say what we're going to do today. Tell them what you're going to tell them. So, firstly, the summer holidays have begun. And we've been doing church online for about 4 months now. So it'll be good just to review a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask Edda in a few moments for her reflections, looking back on this whole online life and doing online church for 4 months now. Then this today has been the end of our sermon series on the life we were made for. The theological concept we've been trying to drill down into is called union with Christ. And it's such a central insight into the Christian life. And it would be lovely to hear from you, your thoughts on it, your highlights, your reflections on these last 5 weeks. And then, as ever, let's talk about all aspects of our service and any questions that have arisen for you from the service or from the Bible passages. So that's the plan. So without further ado, we're going to look at the chat and just see who says hello.
Great. So we've got John Gray saying good morning from Beverly and John. And Amanda is here. Here with us, although being in Italy. And she mentions Alpha and what impact Alpha had 20 years ago.
And not just Alpha, but actually
helping.
We talked about our friend Sue in the talk, and Amanda says Sue was one of her helpers in her small group when she did Alpha 20 years ago. Amazing. Thank you, Amanda.
Clive is saying, hi everyone, and the great short service.
Was it a great short service or was it a great short service, Clive? Just asking. Dom and Vicky are here. Brilliant. Oh, Torquay. You're doing the rounds, no?
Yeah.
You're doing the grand tour, Dom and Vicky.
We're going to travel towards your direction today, so we might see each other on the motorway.
Possibly.
If you're on the road. Great. And yes.
Again, Clive reflects on what a wonderful friend Sue was for him. And I think it's just a testimony to the footprints that Sue's life has left in so many lives. You can read these comments for yourselves, but thank you, Clive.
And Sam says hello, good morning everyone. Great that you're with us, Sam. Caroline says good morning, echoing Clive's comments.
Joan is here, wonderful. Janet is here. Sam says, great to see Edda with Christoph this morning.
It's very strange sitting in front of the computer, talking even more. Anyway, it's a season to try new things, isn't it? So we have got Namdi here. Good morning, everyone. Wishing you all a pleasant week. Great. We've got Laura Phillips here and Sally Cooper. And we've got Joe Potter. We've got Mario from the Netherlands. Hello,
Welcome,
Mario. Patty from Singapore. Even a longer wave. It's amazing. It's been really one of the gifts of this season, hasn't it?
It really has.
That we can come together, no matter where, Italy included.
Yeah.
So
Laura's asking a bit more about Alpha, and just to give you a bit of an... I don't know, Laura, whether you're asking about Alpha in general, But Alpha's been running now for about 30 years. First in this country, it started at a church called Holy Trinity Brompton in London. And the man who developed it very much was Nicky Gumbel. He was then not the vicar yet. He was on the staff team of Holy Trinity Brompton. They first actually developed it as a discipleship course. So for people who were already Christians, to just give them a grounding in the Christian faith. And then they tweaked it and they saw its potential for introducing people to Jesus, for asking some of the big questions of life. And then since then it's grown and grown and grown. And it's now a worldwide course run by different denominations, different churches. Here at Denham Parish Church, we ran it for the first time last year in 4 different groups, actually. Youth Alpha and 3 life groups ran Alpha at the time. We ran it again this spring. Yeah. Here in the rectory, which was
January, yes,
which was rudely interrupted.
Yeah, very inconsiderate
by COVID, but we then finished the last 2 or 3 sessions online. And the idea now is, and let's just underline that while we're talking about it, to run it again in September and run it online. If you're watching this and you say, I'd really like to either refresh the foundations of my faith, or I've got so many questions about the Christian faith, or I'm not even sure about the Christian faith, the great thing about Alpha is you can come with all your questions. No question is out of bounds. You do it in a group context where you can just learn from one another. And I can really say they are excellent presentations. A couple of years ago, Alpha filmed the talks, which were typically given live by a speaker in the church beforehand. You can still do that, but the talks are presented so well. And every time.
Yeah, they're very interactive, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that half hour presentation just flies by.
So let's finish the hellos, and then we get into some of the questions we want to consider today. We were left there with Patty. Right. So the McQueens have arrived from grabbing some coffee and unveiling Tim's resin craft.
I'm really intrigued. Such a shame that you can't send us a photo or zoom in or whatever. What is resin craft? I would
Tell
love
us what
to
resin
know
crafts
that.
are, Tim. We are intrigued. Who else is here? Johnny.
Johnny is here. Johnny Burr and John Hawkins. Again, belated happy birthday. Andrea is here. Andrea Lambert. Great to have you here, Andrea. Ian is here. Hello, Ian. And we've got Anne all the way from Wales with us too. Brilliant.
Great.
And Kath Soul is here. And maybe the whole family.
Great. And thank you, Kath, for announcing to the world that you left a present on our doorstep. We better go quickly now, because everyone who reads this will now come to the rectory to check out what the present is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Great. Well, I'm just going to check some of the other channels so we don't miss anyone's hellos. Just to mention something that came into our Alpha WhatsApp group this morning. One of the members of the Alpha group this morning reflected on the prayer requests we've shared and the answers to prayer we've seen. Not every prayer is answered, but we've seen answers to prayers. And that's been such a blessing. And one of the members of our Alpha group has written, there have been so many answers to prayers. We serve a great God who is calling us to spend more time with him, just to love him and for us to pray for one another. Thank you. And Michelle and Nick are here. Great. I'm just reading this out because you can't see it. And then, Edda, you can read Nick's reflection. Yes. Good morning, says Michelle. How lovely to see Edda and a wonderful flute playing. Hey. Also, so many happy returns for your birthday, Christoph. Thank you.
And Nick writes, reflection, I think your virtual service and coffee morning has supercharged my spiritual life that consisted of Christmas and Easter church service, only to 100% attendance in the past 4 months, a true spiritual resurrection. Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. That's truly special.
Text messages we have coming in from Colin. Colin is here. And on email, we have Bill and Caroline saying good morning.
Right. Yeah.
Thanking us for the service. They actually told me in that email that they were planning to be in Denham this weekend. that hasn't worked out. But it's so great, Bill and Caroline, that we've really reconnected. And we've deepened our relationship with one another through this medium of the online service. So that's absolutely brilliant. Jill is here and says
Jill.
hello.
And Faye is here saying good morning to everyone.
Brilliant. So, my goodness, so many greetings. It's so good to be on this journey with you. I'm just trying to find the right app now so I can see what's happening. Slightly challenged here. Edda, rescue me. Say something.
What shall I say? Oh no, this is life, isn't it? We can't take another recording. Is all happening here and there? Yes. Brilliant.
Well, the first question I wanted to Edda to reflect on a bit, but just to tell you the other things we want to talk about, and thank you, Nick, for getting the ball rolling already, doing a bit of a review after 4 months. Edda's going to review for us in a moment. But what I'd like you to reflect on is this whole series on the life we were made for. Is there something that has stood out for you, something that's been helpful? How have you experienced that series on our union with Christ? So any thoughts would be really helpful. And then this service, any questions, thoughts about the service, the Bible passages, start texting, start chatting now so we can feed that into our conversation a bit later.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you.
So Edda, the question is really, it's my name. How have you experienced these last 4 months, especially so much of our life has been shifted online, but also so much of our church life has been shifted online.
Yes.
So I'd love you to give us a bit of a perspective how you've experienced that.
So I think 4 key words when I try to summarize came to my mind. One is intensity of emotions. I'll talk about each point a little bit in a moment. Screen time, home, and relationships. So those are kind of my key 4 words. I wonder what yours are. Intensity of emotions. I think because naturally it is a crisis we have just experienced. All our emotions were kind of on heightened alert, and I certainly really found that very intense, and it's just in a way stating the obvious, but sometimes it's important to acknowledge those things, isn't it? Because you think, what's going on. So there's grief, heightened sense of grief, joy, and also fear. Then screen time. So I've started a new job on the 1st of April. I'm loving it. But, before I joined, I was told, so we're going to use 3 tools because we're all working from our home. So we're using Slack, we're using Airtable, we're using Zoom. And I didn't know any of these 3 things. And yes, Zoom, we are all know now. But it's just, so I think it's amazing to have all these tools, particularly Zoom, that we could stay in touch, WhatsApp and the phone. But I have noticed I'm kind of sick of seeing myself. I try not to look at myself when I'm in front, like talking to you now. I try to stare in the camera, but it's really difficult. And I can understand why some people might just, switch off the camera because they are tired of looking at themselves.
Please don't switch off your camera. I like seeing all of you. It would be very sad if you were on Zoom with all the cameras switched off. But I understand what you're saying.
But yes, so it's this kind of ambiguity. It's the amazingness that we can use all the technology, but also a certain tiredness and recognizing in myself, when do I just need to, I'm so lucky to have a garden and to go out into the garden, but just stop staring at any screen. Then home, really appreciate the home we've created and having that as a safe space. And I think I've always loved being, I guess, a homemaker, and home has always been important to me, but I cherish it even more now and appreciate it. I made a big to-do list at the beginning of lockdown, all the things, the projects. I don't know whether you are similar.
Can I tell you, it wasn't just one to-do list. If you could step into our utility room
there are lots of those.
On the cupboards, there's lots of lists. Home projects, job projects. She's got projects for me as well, and I must say they are not going very well.
Anyway, none of them have gone really well because it's been very busy. But it's good to have plans, isn't it? Anyway, and lastly, relationships. So, having been able to be connected with our families in Germany through WhatsApp, etc., has been really important to me. Particularly as my mum died last October, and we're still kind of going through a grieving process, and it's been special being connected with my sisters in that way. Just relationships in general, the preciousness of it. So, yeah, I think that's enough. Talked enough.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's more than a starter for 10. There's just a bit of insight into how Edda has experienced these 4 months of a life that's so different from what we knew.
One thing I wanted to add, we listened to a webinar, or went to a webinar last week on online church and so on. And the guy who was talking talked about adaptability being the new superpower. And that kind of stuck with me. Just this need for all of us, I guess. Those of us who can adapt in this new situation and that will carry on, will probably, in some way thrive, or we need to in order to survive. Adaptability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is really true for churches at this time. It's been true for businesses, we know that, and it's as true for families. How do you adapt your family life in this new time? Just talking to a friend yesterday, and he said one of the people he works with as a consultant, she's a very high-powered consultant, did some excellent consultancy work for his setup, but then lockdown happened and he caught up with her on video conferencing, and she needed to work from home with her children being at home and no one to supervise her children. And she was she was nearly in tears saying, I don't know how to do this thing. I need to do all my work from home. I've got barely any private space here, and I need to look after my children at the same time. So adaptability is massive. And it's exciting because I think as a church, it's helped us to make some changes that were in the pipeline, but might have taken months or years to actually implement. And then we were forced to say, we need to do this now. But it's also draining and exhausting, exciting and exhausting. And we need to also take account of that. And that's why over the next weeks, we don't know exactly what church life will look like in 2 or 3 months. We're working one step at a time. The next step is to have both a physical service at 9:30 at St. Mary's from the 2nd of August, and also the online service continuing. And then we develop things as we go along. So we need to adapt. But we also need to have a sustainable pace. As I said in my Rector's update, if you haven't watched it, please watch it, because it gives me a bit of an insight into this next season. Yeah. It's on this YouTube channel. Brilliant. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Keep them coming. So we come back to the chat here on where are we? YouTube. Great. I think we are somewhere here. Laura is saying, still amazes me how we're worshipping from all parts of the world. Isn't that amazing? Let's really discover the blessings of this season. As we said at the beginning of this service, when God allows us to go through a hard season, we will discover his blessings if we but look. And we've discovered so many blessings. Oh, you're not...
Oh, sorry. I forgot that I'm in front of a camera. It's going really well, isn't it? I'm not upstairs in my little study to hide away. I'm sorry, I'm blushing now. I'm not used to
keep
this.
reading.
So you want me to read? Sorry.
I thought my persuasive powers were enough, but they weren't. Janet
I'm a rookie.
Janet says that she really likes that phrase of adaptability being the new superpower. Something to pray for. And, that's such a good point, Janet, because in a sense, I would assume that those people we're chatting with now, they have adapted. And that's such a blessing. There are others who find adapting at this time much harder for a variety of reasons, some beyond their control. And so to pray that we could all adapt and not leave those behind who find the adapting harder.
Yes, because some of us love naturally change, don't we? And I guess for those people, that might be possibly easier, although change just for the sake of it is ridiculous. So that's not a good thing. But I guess for those of us who love change a bit more and get excited, that's possibly easier to adapt. I don't know. Discuss.
And Laura says something similar, that we need to think of those not able to afford internet. So again, can we think creatively? And by the way, the vicar can't do it all, so we all need everyone's help. To identify those people who struggle to get online, maybe for financial reasons, because it's nearly something like a shame factor these days. What? You're not online? What? You haven't got broadband or whatever? And then to say, how can we help? How can we as a church help individuals who have identified and show the love of Christ in very practical ways?
Oh, cool. Sorry, because I'm a bit of a craft nerd. I've just read Timothy's message, and I have heard of that. That's great, and I think you can put into the molds. You can also add plants or something in, right? And then you get these lovely, nice letter. In the past, there were these what are they called, dandelions, and I think that's the stuff, right, Tim?
Tell her.
Anyway, it sounds exciting.
Really?
I'd love to see some photos. And maybe one day you can give a little webinar or something and we can join in.
That would be great, wouldn't it? A webinar, Tim. Could you do that? YouTube Live? Yesterday I heard from Ian that one of his colleagues up in the north, they're funny up there, is giving Bhangra dance classes. Now, don't expect me to do that.
Or me.
I will. Oh, that's a shame. It's not going to happen. But Tim doing a resin thingy creative tutorial would be amazing. Chris is here. Thank you, Chris, so much for your comments.
And Christiane is here.
That's what I meant with Chris.
Oh, sorry, that's what you meant.
It's all right. Sam is saying, if you think about it, we have adapted over the last 4 months, so I'm sure we can carry on adapting. If we have God at our side, anything is possible. And thank you, Sam, for reminding us of this beautiful verse in Isaiah. Those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will run and not grow weary.
Yes.
Can I say in brackets, trusting in the Lord also means accepting our physicality, being made as physical human beings, people who need rest, who need to sleep, who need to eat. That's part of how God has created us. And we're working with that, not against that. No. And too many people have floundered by working against that. And the number of church leaders who've burnt out because they thought, I'm doing this work for the Lord and therefore I will never burn out, is legion. So yes, God will give us strength, but he's also, remember that thing? God is fully in control and we're fully responsible for our actions. This is such a helpful thing. That's one of the takeaways for me from the last weeks, actually. And if you've got any other takeaways, you can read some of them here. Thank you for your comments. We can't read them all out. Just the adaptability is a theme that people are reflecting on, and please read it yourselves. Tim says yes. I assume that means yes, you're going to do a YouTube live tutorial. Thank you. Brilliant.
Epoxy. See, it's great. It's so oh, and Sandy sends a message and is here as well.
Yeah, and Sandy, that's really interesting. She sent a message about how we could respond. And Sandy, we'll read that in our own time. But she's saying the key to adaptability often is changing their internal dialogue or monologue from no, I can't change, into yes, in little steps. And that's really helpful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got so many examples in our church how people have adapted over these months who said, I don't think I can do this, to maybe I can do this, to I can do it now.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. And, just being able, as we go forward, to help some people embrace technology who think they're not tech savvy. There's so many ways in which we can serve them in very practical ways. Let's turn the corner for the last 5 minutes to our Bible text, our service today. Any reflections on that would be good. I had one question which came in this morning from Janet's Bible Book Club, which is a really good question. We combined our Bible book clubs this Thursday, and we loved looking into the Luke passage.
What's great, we were 11 people, weren't we?
Yeah.
And the discussion was really nicely flowing.
And of course, the ascension is such a key some people would call it liminal time. It's a transition. And in a sense, we are at the moment in a transition between what was and what is to come. We don't know quite where it's going. That's how the disciples felt when Jesus left them, physically left them. And one of our reflections was they went back with joy. And I think one of the reasons why they went back with joy was he had given them a clear hope, because they knew he was going to come back again to set up his kingdom. And he had given them a clear task and mission, which becomes clearer when you look in Acts 1. Luke has 2 accounts at the end of Luke's gospel, at the beginning of his book of Acts. And he gives them a clear task to be his witnesses, first in Jerusalem and then Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. So he gives them a clear hope, a clear task, but also the tool that will propel them into this task. Wait in Jerusalem until you're filled with the Holy Spirit. So it's amazing, this transition time. And do read the parallel account in Acts if you have 2 minutes today. Acts 1. Because it's the same author shedding some different light on it. It's, as it were, the long version, whereas Luke is the short version. And then there's this intriguing passage that Janet refers to in her email this morning. And it is that Jesus again opened the eyes of the disciples to, to the full gospel story, that the Messiah had to suffer and rise again. And she asks, we know that in the Old Testament we find references to Messiah suffering. Think about the suffering servant in Isaiah if you want to look it up. But where are there references to the Messiah rising again? And that is really fascinating, isn't it? Because one of our key discussions last Thursday was actually, this is one story, the Old and the New Testament. And everything we see happening, including the fact that the day of Pentecost was, of course, a Jewish festival. That's why everyone came to Jerusalem for that particular day. Everything is based on the big story of God all through the Bible. And so Jesus says all of the Old Testament, which was all the scripture they had then, is pointing to me. And so the specific question, Janet, I literally read it a minute before we went live, so I wasn't able to do a Bible study. What I would say is, if you have a Bible software, if you don't, go to biblegateway.com or .org, one of the two, can't remember, and just use it as a concordance. Put in a word, and in some you can also say, just look the Old Testament. So I'm going to do this now, and I don't think I can share my screen because I haven't set it up for that. In my Bible software, I can put in third and then say only look it up in the Old Testament. And then of course you get a lot of stuff that's not relevant, but you'll also, I can't even define the Old Testament here. Then you can find all the words that are there. I'll just do the whole Bible and then just scroll through that are there. You may find some. I remember faintly there's a verse that God is saying, on the third day, I will bring you back to life or something, which then later generations after Jesus have referred back to Jesus's resurrection. Now, the other thing I would suggest you do is look at the sermons in the New Testament, because all they had was the Old Testament.
And they might quote, mightn't they?
So look at Peter's Pentecost sermon, because he says, it says in the Old Testament, you will not let your chosen one see decay. And that's David saying it. And it says, my friends, David died and he's still dead. You can visit his grave. However, David was also a prophet, and he spoke about the Messiah who was to come, who David calls my Lord in the Psalms. So look at the sermons of the New Testament, which referred to the Old Testament, to find some of these references. These are just good Bible study tools. We're going to look at some more comments, and then we're going to finish with one little reflection from the musical Hamilton, which we highly recommend.
Yes, maybe you've all seen it and we're just the last people to catch up on that.
Great. So I don't think we have any more comments. I'm just going to check my email so I don't miss anyone. Yep. Faith is here.
And hello, Faith.
Is saying another lovely service, which is great to see that you're doing okay. And just another WhatsApp.
And can I just say, hopefully most of you have seen our short video invitation about the 4 marriage sessions. So they are for, as we said in the video, for anyone, whether you're married or you're engaged to be married. We'd love you to just take part of that. Might be a great way for you to just have a different program, so to speak, in August, and to invest in that very central relationship in your life if you're married or have a partner.
Brilliant. By the way, there's a mistake on the video that a couple of people have pointed out. You will find it. The sessions are obviously in August, not in June. But one of the subtitles says the sessions are in June. I couldn't re-edit it because it was already out in the World Wide Web world.
With the links, etc. So it doesn't matter.
Taken as read. But we'd love you to think, if you're married or engaged to be married, to sign up for that. Let me finish with this. I read an article about Hamilton from a Christian magazine the other day. And it reminded me of the disciples in Acts 1 staring into the sky after Jesus had ascended. And some angels appear to them and say, "Why are you staring into the sky, guys? This Jesus who you've seen disappear in front of your eyes, he will return. And in the meantime," they didn't say that, but Jesus said it to them with his last words, "You've got a job to do. We've got a job to do. Our hope is not ticket to heaven when we die and that's it. Our hope is Jesus is with us now. We're united to Christ. He has joined his life to ours. And one day every tongue will confess you are God," as a worship song says. "But the greatest treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now." We've got a job to do. And this is a quote from the article on Hamilton. Hamilton also tells a story about a man who lives with remarkable initiative. In brackets, there we have adaptability again. Thanks, Michelle, for your comment on WhatsApp. Continue the quote. In the most famous lyric from the musical, Hamilton declares, "I'm not gonna throw away my shot." That line could have been his life's mantra. He arrived in America at the dawn of the revolution as a poor immigrant college student. Less than 20 years later, he had become the second most powerful man in the newly formed United States. The remarkable trajectory of Hamilton's life could most accurately be explained by his intense bent towards initiative. And here comes the bit of the quote, which I think is brilliant. "When Christians behave as though we can't overcome major challenges, such as existing systems, Hamilton's story challenges us to see our circumstances differently." Someone said it in coffee this morning, with God, all things are possible.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we need to remember at this time. So Janet is saying, we're lucky enough to see Hamilton live. We loved it. Amanda is saying, did you watch Hamilton online? And the answer is yes. This was not the reason, but one of the reasons why we've decided to sign up to Disney Plus for a month or two, because it's now live on Disney Plus, and it's going to cost you £6 for the month, but I think it's money well worth spent. So here you go.
Yes.
Dom and Vicky say we watch it on Friday too. It's available via Disney Plus. I didn't have to say all this.
Excellent.
It's filming one of the Broadway productions, so highly recommended. And so many gospel themes. I mean, we were both in tears. I haven't been in tears so much watching a movie for a long time. Maybe the last time was another musical, which was the Les Mis film version. But there's beautiful gospel themes in there. We've outstayed our welcome.
Yeah, sorry. It's obviously two people talking.
So great to be with you.
Thank you for all your comments.
Don't forget, no virtual coffee next Sunday.
It's not virtual coffee, Christoph.
Oh, thank you.
It's online coffee, no.
No church coffee online next
Hasn't
Sunday.
got the same ring, has it?
Yeah. If you've got a better name, let us know. But there will be Holy Communion before the service, but you need to sign up for that. And we'll see you soon. Have a great week.
Bye.
Take care.